Dion Sanders and the Browns enter their second week of OTAs. The young quarterback fighting for a roster spot, maybe eventually fighting for the starting job. His dad, Dion, went on the Say What Needs to Be Said podcast with Asante Samuel and addressed reports that Shedeur wasn't prepared for meetings ahead of the NFL draft. We've all heard those whispers that caused him to fall to the fifth round. Here was Dad.
When you sit up there and say something like, he went in a meeting unprepared, like, dude, Shedeur Sanders, who's had 6 different coordinators, who has still functioned and went up, leveled up every time we brought somebody new in, and you're gonna tell me he was
every situation.
You're gonna tell me he had on headphones. Shedeur, anybody know my son, understand he's a professional. Like, he's gonna go into a meeting with headphones on. Like, y'all, come on, man.
It's a really complicated issue because here's the bottom line of it, and I'll give it to the group. In fact, Peter, I'll start with you as our insider. He was a complicated evaluation. There was no one, and my job as the host of the draft is to aggregate all of the opinion that exists. There was no one who had him falling to the fifth round. No one. And I remember the line, some would say, well, if his name was Shedeur Jones, he might fall to the third round. He fell to the fifth round. If his name had been Shedeur Jones, maybe he would have gone in the third round, but it worked out in the opposite direction. So when you hear Dion saying this stuff, what do you think about around the league?
32 teams passed on Shedeur Sanders, including the Cleveland Browns, who took a quarterback in the third round before taking Shedeur Sanders, including the Pittsburgh Steelers, who just completely waited until the sixth round to take a quarterback, and of course, including the Las Vegas Raiders, who have an owner in Tom Brady, who at the very least has served as a mentor and sort of a person that he goes to for advice. Here's the bottom line. All that is a race now, except it's really not, because he's the fourth quarterback on the depth chart. And they just had OTAs, and there was glowing reviews from everyone in the media, and we're tracking his passes. But Shedeur Sanders still has to come in and earn every single thing. Do I think the reports about him being ill-prepared? Look, I don't have anyone on record telling me he was wearing headphones. I don't have anyone on record telling me personally that he was on a FaceTime call, which is something that you read about in the media. I don't have those stories. What I do have is that, you know what, we're good. We don't need Shedeur Sanders. We don't need all of that in our room. But all that is gone now. He's a Cleveland Brown now.
Right. I agree. Here's what's interesting to me. Like, I was on record for months saying I thought he was either the second or third best quarterback, bottom of the first, maybe top of second, worst case scenario. But the NFL is the ultimate meritocracy, and every team is dying for a good young quarterback. And they saw something in the pre-draft process. Bart, you may disagree, but that's the facts, the reality. Look, we drafted Laramie Tunsil with a gas mask. We have signed players off of suspension. Right, and that worked out great. So I'm saying
that worked out great.
This is a league of second chances and forgiveness.
What?
There was some massive disc. But Bart,
are we going to consider headphones with a gas mask?
But I'm just
making a point.
My point is this, Bart. When you look at the objective facts, he didn't go in the fifth round. Some disconnect happened in the pre-draft process. There's no other way to explain it. It's just, now look, with that said, he could turn it all on its head. Tom Brady was a sixth-round pick. He could start an opening day. So, like, this is the beginning of the story. But, Bart, the reality is 32 teams had an opinion, and he won in the fifth round.
At least 5 of them was wrong, right? Because they need a quarterback in the best way. He can, you talk about from extremes. You said fighting for a roster spot to potentially being a starter.
Right.
Like, what are we doing? It's a lot of in between. So you mean to tell me that that's a fifth-round pick?
No,
you used to tell me a lot of stuff. But one of the things you used to tell me was production breeds tolerance. His college production breeds tolerance. And it maybe not the first round tolerance, maybe not the second round, but come on, the third round. I mean, come on. The Jets, I mean, you're going to put all your faith in Justin Fields reviving his career, knowing that Jordan Travis potentially was going to retire from football. You understand, if you're the Saints, you understand that Carr is going to retire from football. You wouldn't throw something against the wall in the fourth round. Those are throwaway picks. Half of those guys don't even make your roster. So I think it's laughable that that so many teams passed on him over and over again.
So why do you
half
think
of the fourth round?
That's the question.
Because they cut their nose to spite their face. Whatever statement they were trying to make, a lot of those guys that made those picks, I guarantee you at least 3 or 4 of them is going to be unemployment line. It's going to be because they didn't find a quarterback that they were looking for, whether it's general manager or head coach.
You said that the league is the ultimate meritocracy. And generally speaking, I agree with you. But in this case, it doesn't seem to be the case, right? No one doesn't think he was good enough to have been drafted well higher than he was. So there was some outlier here. There was some sort of different circumstances that created what wound up happening.
Yeah, it was, look, the Dion thing might not have been, hey, I'm scared that Dion's going to take my job or that Dion's going to end up.
Shame on you if that even.
Dion Sanders, he didn't have an agent during this process. So he's going out there, and we're hearing stories about, hey, I don't necessarily know where he's going to end up. I don't know where we want him to go here. He's wearing cleats that say the New York Giants on him at a bowl game bar. There are things that were different. This is a different prospect.
You deserve to be fired if you're afraid of a man taking your job, so you don't take his
So
son.
why is shedeur Sanders not so offended, but everyone else is? Dion seems to be very upset in that.
Because he's in a moment. His only job is to prove them wrong.
And Shedeur's been amazing because Shedeur said, I'm not motivated by them. I'm motivated by myself.
He's not going to tell you.
People were crying on television in RC, crying on television that Shedeur Sanders was prank called. That same night, Shedeur Sanders was out at a club enjoying himself because he got drafted by a team. I think people are very sensitive about Shedeur. Shedeur's just taking it as it is and is going to prove a lot of people wrong.
He's not going to show you the outside stuff, the inside stuff outside. His job is to show that everything is okay here and still project that confidence.
And
His
if he
father
doesn't play,
is
is
supposed
everyone
to speak
else
for him.
wrong because he doesn't play? If Flacco's getting the reps or if Dylan Gabriel beats him out, it could happen. They drafted Dylan. Is everyone else just an idiot because that happened?
Yes. And you don't believe that.
But, you know, guys, here's the facts. Like, all of us in the media who watched the film had him somewhere between the first, maybe the third. There was some disconnect in the pre-draft process.
Right.
I think Peter's making an interesting nuanced point. When you have an agent, you're getting active feedback that you could react to. Maybe you go back in for another visit. There was some disconnect in the pre-draft process, There's no other way to reconcile his ability and the result of what happened.
Right. And so, Matt, what?
It's just disgusting.
It is disgusting because there's no way that his talent means that he should have got picked in the 5th round. And that's shame on that.
I don't want to make a big deal out of this, but some pretty interesting information trickled over my phone from the Cleveland Browns OTA yesterday. I'm not great at math, but let's put the numbers up for the television audience. It appears in the 4-quarterback derby. Again, not a mathematician, but one of them has more TDs than completions. That feels important to me. Despite the fact that Shedeur Sanders had the fewest attempts, he was the most efficient and most productive with the fewest reps. So the quarterback tracker for those radio audience members, Flacco was 9 for 14 and a touchdown. Pickett, 9 for 16, no touchdown. Dylan Gabriel, 11 of 16, 2 touchdowns and a pick. And Sanders, 7 of 9, 3 touchdowns, no picks. This just in. I've seen enough. I'm calling it a wrap. The Herd newsroom is calling it in Ohio by a landslide. Shedeur Sanders should be starting. We are calling Ohio as the projected winner in a race that is not as close as the fake news projected. You can keep selling me on Pickett. You can keep selling me on Dylan Gabriel. Now, Flacco, I buy. Flacco, I like. He's one of my favorite guys that's ever played in the league. He's like, everybody likes Flacco, and I think he's going to win the starting job initially. I really like Flacco. But I'm calling it for Shedeur, and here's Flacco on Shedeur.
Shedeur's been great. I mean, he's a lot of fun to be around in those meeting rooms, and I think so far there's been, at least once in the meeting room that he's made me crack a smile, and that's what it's all about. He's a young guy trying to learn some football and come out here and practice well and do those things, and like I said, he's been a lot of fun.
Okay, people, everybody's trying to sell you. I mean, TikTok selling you, IG selling you, using filters. Everybody is selling you stuff. Now people are talking about the election that wasn't for Biden and was for Trump. Everybody's selling me their takes. Y'all keep selling me. I got scouts telling me he's a 5th or a 6th round talent. All I know, with very average personnel outside of Travis Hunter, against the very best teams he played. They didn't win games, but he was highly productive. And a lot of college quarterbacks against the best teams with better teammates weren't as productive. Size, movement, accuracy, I like it. I know I didn't love the legendary draft room stuff. I thought it was lacked a little self-awareness. But again, you're 21, you're 22, you know, we were all running around pulling fire hydrants in college. So, I mean, but you know, we the pull the lever in college dorm rooms. I mean, we were all idiots at some point. We all had, lack of judgment or self-awareness. So I'm not going to crush anybody for that. But I think he's really talented, and I think you're seeing it. J-Mac, we're calling it for Ohio.
Oh boy!
You know what else? You know what else? Last
train
night
has left the station, and it's May for shedeur Sanders. Okay.
The process of elimination may have already solved the Cleveland Browns quarterback dilemma. They don't really have a way to go into the new season with all 4 of their quarterbacks on the roster, but a trade or cut could be forthcoming for one of them, and in the early going, it seems clear who it'll be. Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett are both solid veteran presences, and rookie Shedeur Sanders has been precise. That leaves rookie Dillon Gabriel as the most likely to be gotten rid of after the Athletics' Zach Jackson shared a brutal assessment in the early going. Dillon Gabriel does not look like an NFL quarterback to me, Jackson said on the Zach Gelb show. Like 0%, so I don't know what's going to happen. The Browns shocked the NFL by taking Gabriel at number 94 overall in the 3rd round. You'd think that draft stock would keep his roster spot safe, but given that the Browns got a more talented QB in Sanders in the 5th round at number 144, Gabriel could indeed be deemed surplus to proceedings. Cleveland would probably like Gabriel to play in the preseason and look decent to fetch some sort of draft pick for him in a trade rather than just releasing him. But right now, it looks like that's the route Cleveland will go if things continue in this way. The Cleveland Browns are in dire need of help at wide receiver as the Browns failed to address the position in the NFL draft and haven't done anything to repair it other than signing Deontay Johnson. The Browns currently have Jerry Jeudy and no real proven options behind him, which could cause major problems for Cleveland's already shaky quarterback situation in 2025. Could a potential blockbuster trade be on the table for the Browns? Well, a very intriguing scenario is emerging in the nation's capital as Washington Commanders star Terry McLaurin is still without a contract. He is apparently negotiating with the Commanders, but that has been ongoing since late March, and here we are. McLaurin is preparing to enter the final year of his deal, so if Washington is unable to reach an agreement with him soon, it could cause significant issues heading into training camp. While the Commanders have certainly not placed McLaurin on the trade block just yet, there does exist a world in which Washington may field trade offers for the 29-year-old, and if that occurs, the Browns should absolutely enter the conversation. Now, it should be noted that McLaurin turns 30 in September, so that could make things complicated for Cleveland in terms of striking a long-term pact with the 2-time Pro Bowler. Remember, the Browns refused to give Amari Cooper a multi-year extension last offseason, and it proved to be the correct decision. Still, Cleveland should at least consider the possibility of acquiring McLaurin, especially considering that the Browns could be rolling with Shedeur Sanders as their franchise quarterback moving forward. The Ohio State product has posted 5 straight 1,000-yard campaigns and just completed a 2024 season in which he hauled in 82 receptions for 1,096 yards and 13 touchdowns. A Jeudy McLaurin tandem would be beyond tantalizing, and Cleveland has to know this. Again, there is no indication that the Commanders want to trade McLaurin, but that could change instantly if contract talks go awry.